At the beginning of Season 2, FBI agent Alexander Mahone is assigned to track down the Fox River 8 escapees. The authorities are also chasing the fugitives, who include our main character Michael Schofield and his brother Lincoln. Along with them are Fernando Sucre, C-Note, and John Abruzzi. T-Bag is with them too, but because he's dangerous, the group cuts off his hand and leaves him behind. After that, they steal a car, and Michael leads them to a warehouse in Oswego. Meanwhile, the authorities get a tip about the escapees but end up raiding the wrong place. On the other side, Alexander searches Michael's apartment and finds evidence proving that Michael had been planning the escape for months. Acting on this lead, Alexander orders a search of the nearby river, believing Michael might have dumped something important there. Alexander also starts piecing together the deeper meaning behind Michael's detailed tattoos. Elsewhere, T-Bag, still carrying his severed hand in a box of ice, finds a veterinarian and forces him to sew it back on. Afterward, he kills the doctor and takes his car to pursue the other escapees, knowing what Michael is after. Meanwhile, Lincoln's former love interest, Veronica, is trapped inside a mansion with the ex-president. Realizing she can't get out, she calls the police. However, instead of cops, some suited men show up and brutally kill her. Sarah eventually regains consciousness and, a few days later, receives a secret message from Michael. After decoding it, she learns a little about Michael's next steps. Back at the warehouse, Michael and the group dig up a stash he had buried before his arrest, which contains clothes and tools vital for their getaway. At the same time, Alexander struggles with an addiction, but keeps chasing Michael's plans with growing obsession, determined to fully understand and capture him. Elsewhere, fired guard Geary reveals that Warden Pope has been suspended for giving Michael special treatment while he built the Taj Mahal model for Pope's wife. Bellick is also fired for selling information, including privileges, to John Abruzzi. After losing his job, Bellick learns the government has put a bounty on each escapee's head and decides to go after them for the reward money. Meanwhile, the group decides to split up, though Michael and Lincoln stay together. Lincoln persuades Michael to help rescue his son LJ, who's being framed for a crime he didn't commit. Using a hidden car Michael stashed in a garage, they head out. During a supply stop, they're spotted by police, forcing them to abandon the car and flee, which severely impacts their plan. Lincoln calls LJ to give him instructions, but Alexander, catching on, intercepts their plan. When Lincoln tries to rescue LJ by sneaking through an elevator shaft, Alexander intervenes, forcing Lincoln to escape without his son. Lincoln is shot during the attempt, but the brothers manage to get away. LJ is later transferred to Arizona for imprisonment. Meanwhile, T-Bag heads to Utah, where he knows Cooper's hidden money is. Another escapee, David, continues petty theft and accepts a girl's offer to join her in Utah. Everyone is after Cooper's stash. One morning, Bellick and Geary run into each other at a store and, after fighting, agree to team up to track the escapees and claim the bounties. They first pressure another failed escapee, Sanchez, for information and start hunting Michael's girlfriend. At the same time, the brothers reach a safe house where Lincoln gets treated for his gunshot wound. Michael goes back to retrieve their car, only to find it missing. After some searching, he tracks it down to a junkyard, but realizes their bag has been stolen. Leaving everything behind, they continue along a path Michael's tattoo had mapped out. To throw off authorities, they destroy the car and leave 2 chunks of flesh behind, making it seem like they're dead. Though most authorities are convinced, Alexander stays suspicious and pushes the search forward, even swapping in the names of other inmates to keep the hunt active. Michael and Lincoln reunite with Michael's girlfriend Nika, but Bellick and Geary are already tracking her. Meanwhile, Sucre learns his girlfriend Mara Cruz is about to marry Hector in Las Vegas. In a panic, he borrows a motorcycle and heads toward Vegas. Sarah, meanwhile, is arrested for drug possession and eventually enters rehab on her father's advice. There, she meets a man posing as a fellow addict, Kellerman, who is actually using a fake identity. Secretly a government agent working for the company, Kellerman slowly gains Sarah's trust. Meanwhile, Bellick and Geary ambush and capture Michael, Nika, and Lincoln. Instead of turning them in for the reward, they decide to go after Cooper's money themselves. They force Michael to drive them to where the money is hidden. During the ride, Lincoln quietly causes a tire to blow out. Geary takes the tire into town for repairs, leaving Bellick to guard the others. While distracting him, Nika steals Bellick's knife during a staged lap dance and frees herself and the brothers. Together, they lock Bellick in a cell and later capture Geary as well. Desperate to save himself, Bellick reveals that Sarah is in a fragile state. Seeing a chance, Nika chooses to betray the brothers and turn them in for the bounty instead of chasing Cooper's money. But her plan fails when she realizes the gun is empty, and the brothers leave her stranded on the roadside. Meanwhile, David grows closer to the girl he's traveling with toward Utah, still hiding his real identity. At the same time, John finds out where Fibonacci, the man who betrayed him, is hiding and rushes off to kill him, but it turns out to be a trap set by Alexander. When confronted, John refuses to surrender and is fatally shot after pulling a gun. Alexander faces criticism for mishandling the situation, but since he works for the company, he easily avoids any serious consequences. Back at rehab, Kellerman and Sarah start to bond. He continues to manipulate her, meeting her at her home. Meanwhile, the FBI discovers that both brothers are still alive. David's companion eventually learns his true identity, but, in a surprising move, lets him steal her car and escape. She clearly has feelings for him but won't risk her life for a fugitive, so she lets him flee from the motel room they were staying in. The brothers reach Utah, but no one seems to know anything about the land they're searching for. The money had been hidden there years ago, but now, because of the city's expansion, the landmarks have changed, and no one knows the exact spot anymore. They go to City Hall to find the city's old blueprints, only to discover that the specific page they need is missing. There, they spot Teabag and realize he must have taken it. They track him down, but Teabag admits he was too late and that David now has the blueprint. Meanwhile, David is at a hardware store getting digging supplies. A suspicious store clerk notices him, but before anything happens, the brothers arrive and confront David. He admits that Teabag actually still has the blueprint, and that he lied to buy time to memorize it. David then destroys the blueprint by eating it, leaving the brothers no choice but to depend on him. Elsewhere, Sucre rushes to the church where Maricruz is getting married. He confronts Hector, begging him to leave Maricruz alone, but Hector has already called the cops. Sucre punches Hector and flees to avoid arrest. Leaving everything behind, Sucre now heads toward the location of Cooper's money. On the way, he meets up with C-Note, and they continue their journey together. Meanwhile, Alexander realizes the importance of the money and that all the escapees are heading toward Utah. Kim, a senior company operative, tells Kellerman that he can no longer contact President Reynolds directly. From now on, he must report through Kim. Back at rehab, Sarah starts to think Lincoln might be innocent after looking over the evidence again. She tries to move on from Michael but still finds herself thinking about him constantly. Meanwhile, Michael, Lincoln, and Teabag arrive at the land only to find that a residential neighborhood has been built over the spot where the money is buried. After investigating, Michael figures out that the money is hidden under a house owned by a middle-aged woman. The group comes up with a plan to get into her house and dig for the money. David arrives with the digging equipment. Michael poses as a contractor from an energy company and convinces the woman that her power supply needs urgent repairs, which they had purposely disrupted. Luckily, she lets them inside, and they start digging under her house. Soon after, Sucre and C-Note show up. They have also come to claim their share of the money. After a while, David is sent to fill up their vehicle since Michael wants to avoid any trouble once they recover the money. But at the gas station, David is recognized by the authorities. He tries to escape, but is eventually caught by Alexander, who then brings him to an interrogation room at a nearby police station to question him about the other's location. Meanwhile, Patoshik, one of the escapees with a disturbed mind, roams the streets aimlessly. He breaks into an abandoned home and becomes obsessed with a painting of a countryside house, deciding to take it. At the same time, Sarah's father, now a governor and soon-to-be vice president, shows up at her place to visit. There, he meets Kellerman, who is already inside and introduces himself as a friend. At the house where the team is digging, the homeowner, a middle-aged woman, suddenly grows suspicious of Teabag and demands that everyone leave. During their dig, they spot a cop pulling up, who turns out to be the woman's daughter. Quickly, they lock both women in a room and continue their search, as they're now close to the money. Later, Lincoln chooses to leave the group after hearing that LJ has been cleared of all charges and will soon be released, unaware it's a setup orchestrated by Alexander to capture him. After hours of digging, the team finally uncovers the money, but Sucre suddenly pulls a gun on them and demands the entire bag. He takes off with the whole stash by himself. Meanwhile, Alexander offers David a deal: lead him to the others, and he'll go easy on him. David pretends to agree, but tricks him by visiting his girlfriend instead and asking her to wait for him. Alexander soon realizes the deception and drags David away. While driving back to the station, Alexander decides to travel alone with David, then pulls over on a deserted road and coldly kills him. Elsewhere, Patoshik starts building a homemade raft inspired by the painting. He encounters some teenagers, but they are creeped out by his strange behavior and leave. The next day, Sarah arrives at her father's house, only to find him dead from an apparent suicide. Horrified, she calls the police, but also retrieves a key her father had hidden in his final days. Meanwhile, Kellerman blames Kim for mishandling the governor's death and hints that Sarah might meet the same fate. Back at the dig site, Sucre runs off with the bag of cash, but it's soon revealed that this was part of Michael's plan to outsmart the others and get a bigger cut. Unfortunately, they realize too late that Sucre grabbed the wrong bag. Teabag has the real money. Teabag slips away and begins plotting to find Susan Hollander, the woman who had once turned him in, as he's still obsessed with her. On the way back through the woods, Sucre gets pinned under a fallen log in a river. Michael desperately tries to free him but can't. With the cops closing in fast, Sucre begs Michael to leave him behind, but Michael refuses, risking his own life. Thankfully, the dam opens, causing the water level to rise, and Michael comes up with a plan. He slams his motorbike into the log and manages to save Sucre just in time. Later, Sucre finds out that Maricruz has canceled her wedding and begins his search for her. Meanwhile, the group uses their remaining cash to buy vehicles and split up. Lincoln manages to find LJ, and together they pull off a fake street fight to slip away from the company's operatives. Meanwhile, Bellick and Geary figure out that Teabag has the cash, and they start piecing together where he's heading. Elsewhere, Sarah narrowly escapes an attack from company agents, who mistakenly go after someone else. Using a payphone, she reaches out to Bruce Bennett, a colleague of her father's, for help, but quickly learns he's betrayed her and is secretly working for the company. At the same time, Kellerman works on decrypting the coded messages Sarah had gotten from Michael. During this, Michael tries to recover the nitroglycerin vials he had hidden before getting locked up, but barely manages to flee when he finds the FBI lying in wait for him. He starts to suspect that Alexander is systematically killing every fugitive he catches. To dig deeper into Alexander's past, Michael contacts his ex-wife Pam by pretending to be an agent. Michael uncovers that Alexander murdered Oscar Shales, a missing serial killer, and buried the body in his own backyard. Afterward, Michael confronts Alexander over the phone and warns him to back off from him and Lincoln, offering to keep Alexander's secret in return. But Alexander refuses, now that he knows exactly where Michael plans to meet Sarah. Meanwhile, C-Note reconnects with his friends, and together they pull off a risky mission to break his wife, Casey, out of FBI custody. He also rescues his daughter, finally reuniting his family. Meanwhile, Teabag tracks down Susan Hollander's house, only to find she sold it and fled with her kids. Soon after, Bellick and Geary catch Teabag and torture him for the money's location, but Teabag proves tough to break. Kellerman finds out that Sarah is headed to New Mexico to meet Michael and sets out after her. Meanwhile, Lincoln and LJ try to dodge the cops but get caught. Luckily, they're freed by a group of strangers who are secretly working with Lincoln and Michael's father. Sarah finally reaches her meeting point and reunites with Michael, but they are ambushed by Alexander. Thinking quickly, Michael drives toward an abandoned factory, setting a trap inside to stall Alexander while Sarah escapes. Inside, Alexander can't shoot Michael because Michael has released propane gas all over the factory. Michael warns him to stay away, reminding him that he's always a step ahead of the company. Later, Sarah treats Michael's wounds at a safe spot, thanking him for making sure Teabag faced justice. The scene shifts to Lincoln and LJ, now safe in a hideout with Lincoln's father Aldo and his men. Lincoln and LJ finally reconnect with Aldo, but a traitor in the group alerts Kim about their location. Elsewhere, Bellick and Geary's torture of Teabag goes nowhere until Teabag swallows a key. They retrieve it using laxatives, leading them to a safety deposit box filled with cash. But greed gets the better of Geary. He attacks Bellick and takes off with the bag. Meanwhile, Sucre sends a message to Maricruz asking her to call him, but she doesn't respond because the police are nearby. Still determined, Sucre sends another message asking her to meet him in Mexico. Meanwhile, Kellerman arrives at the spot where Sarah is hiding out with Michael. Sarah leaves a note for Michael and heads out, but as soon as she steps outside, Kellerman ambushes her. The scene cuts to Teabag, who's handcuffed in a room. Geary has already tipped off the cops, and sirens are approaching fast. Teabag decides to cut off his hand again to escape. Meanwhile, Michael, now alone after Sarah's departure and short on cash for his next move, struggles with guilt over his plan. Seeking clarity, he goes to a church for confession before making his decision. Back at the safe house, Aldo tells Lincoln that Governor Frank held a recording that could clear Lincoln's name, but a mole within their group attacks them. Lincoln manages to kill him in self-defense. Seeing this, Aldo orders his men to move LJ somewhere safer. Meanwhile, Kim reaches the abandoned factory, where Michael had trapped Alexander. Kim releases Alexander and sends him after Michael again. Finally, Michael meets with smugglers who promise to get him across the border in exchange for nitroglycerin. However, When they find out that Michael has brought fake nitroglycerin, they decide to kill him. Just in time, Sucre shows up and rescues Michael, badly injuring the leader of the smugglers in the process. The two of them tie up the smugglers to chairs and start demanding the location of the plane. But the smuggler leader's condition is deteriorating fast, and he's bleeding heavily. Michael decides to spare the smugglers in exchange for their cooperation, and he gets the airfield's location from them. As Michael and Sucre prepare to leave, Lincoln and Aldo arrive as planned. Michael is shocked to realize that Aldo is his father. Here, we learn that Aldo abandoned Michael when he was very young, and Michael's life had been difficult ever since. Elsewhere, Bellick sends a threatening message to Geary, trying to intimidate his disloyal friend into returning the stolen money. However, Teabag interferes and kills Geary to reclaim his money bag. Meanwhile, Kellerman takes Sarah to a motel room and tortures her for the information she received from her father. She refuses to break, and Kim, who's on the line with Kellerman, grows frustrated. He orders Sarah's death. Though Kellerman hesitates, he ultimately follows orders, leaving Sarah bound in a tub of water to drown. Back with Michael, he confesses to Lincoln that his foster father used to abuse him. Aldo intervened and saved him by killing the abuser. Aldo admits that he was part of the company and had to leave his family to protect them from threats. He also reveals the existence of a tape that could prove Lincoln's innocence. Aldo assures Michael that they don't need to run anymore, but their relief is short-lived when Alexander shows up. Upon seeing the whole family together, Alexander opens fire. Thankfully, the family manages to escape, but Aldo is shot in the process. He dies in the car, asking his sons to find the tape. Michael and Lincoln, devastated, bury their father. They decide to stop running and fight for their rights. Their first priority is to find the tape. Sucre boards the plane alone, leaving the brothers behind. The scene shifts to Bellick, who continues to lie to the authorities about his actions. However, he's caught when they uncover the incriminating message he left for Geary. This message leads to his arrest for murder. Meanwhile, C-Note's wife Casey realizes she forgot their daughter's medication. While trying to retrieve it from a pharmacy, she's recognized and arrested. On the other hand, Alexander arrives at the airfield too late to stop Sucre's plane from taking off. He finds Michael and Lincoln trying to contact Sarah, and he rams his car into theirs, preparing to kill them. However, the police arrive and arrest the brothers instead. Alexander demands that the brothers be transported with him, but the request is denied. Meanwhile, Sarah manages to free herself from the water-filled tub, attacks Kellerman, and leaps out of the window to escape. Kim learns of Sarah's escape and fires Kellerman for his repeated failures. Kellerman convinces him to give him one last shot, and he comes up with a plan to kill the brothers during their transport. But Kim secretly orders Alexander to kill Kellerman once the brothers are dead. Back at Fox River, Bellick is serving his sentence, hoping for special treatment from his old colleagues. To his horror, the new pope refuses to offer him any privileges and instead assigns him to Avocado's cell, making the prison a living hell for him. The scene shifts to Teabag, who starts dating a postal worker and convinces her to help him find Susan Hollander. When she discovers who he really is, Teabag kills her and shows up at Hollander's home. Soon, he traps her and her kids inside. Back to his serious self, he ties up Susan and forces her children to obey him. He also blocks the door with wooden logs, making sure Hollander and her kids can't escape, fully securing his control over them. Meanwhile, Sarah is trying to stay under the radar. She changes her hairstyle to avoid being recognized. During the prisoner transfer, Michael and Lincoln are left alone in the vehicle while passing through an underpass. Conveniently, the keys are left in front of them. Alexander wants them to grab the keys and escape. Everything is set up. The nearby escape door is unlocked, and Alexander is keeping the police distracted elsewhere. The brothers hesitate for a moment, but then decide to make a run for it. Alexander chases after them, but on the other side of the underpass, Kellerman is waiting with a sniper rifle, ready to kill them. The brothers are trapped from both sides. Soon, Kellerman and Alexander recapture them. Then, things take a dramatic turn. Kellerman unexpectedly shoots Alexander and offers to help Michael and Lincoln. He claims he knows where Terrence Stedman is being held. However, Lincoln doesn't trust Kellerman, since Kellerman was the one who set him up for murder. Lincoln tries to kill him, but Kellerman convinces them by revealing Stedman's location. He's alive and being kept captive in a mansion. After that, the three of them board a plane to Montana to confront Stedman. Meanwhile, Alexander regains consciousness and alerts Kim about the situation. Kim then orders Stedman's immediate relocation, but Michael, Lincoln, and Kellerman arrive just in time to kidnap Stedman from the security team. Back to Alexander. Tired of working for the company, he tries to quit. However, after his child becomes the target of a staged accident by the company, he's forced to stay loyal to them under any circumstances. At Fox River, Bellick faces abuse from Banks and other inmates. After a fight breaks out, Bellick uses surprise to fight back. Later that night, guards secretly working with Banks unlock Bellick's cell, leaving him open to attack. Meanwhile, Kellerman reveals that Terrence Steadman's identity has been completely changed. His sister Caroline, now the president, made sure he was unrecognizable. Despite this, Michael contacts the press to expose the truth because clearing Lincoln's name depends on it. But overwhelmed by guilt and fear, Steadman grabs a gun and kills himself. Now, the brothers have no way to prove their innocence, and the police surround the hotel where they're hiding. The police force them to come out. Michael quickly comes up with a plan. He steps out under Kellerman's custody. After coming outside, they take a cameraman hostage and manage to escape. Back at Fox River, Bellick is seen badly beaten the next morning and is warned to stay quiet or face worse consequences. Meanwhile, Michael and Lincoln record their statements on camera and release the cameraman. The tape eventually airs on TV. In the video, Lincoln insists that he's innocent and was framed. Michael explains the company's involvement and the truth about Oscar Shales. He also exposes Alexander's work for the company. Michael apologizes to Sarah, saying she was never part of anything illegal. The broadcast includes hidden messages, most of which Alexander finds meaningless, except for one meant for Sarah. Alexander, desperate to uncover Michael's plan, enlists Bellick to decode the message, offering him a transfer to administrative isolation in return. Meanwhile, Fernando Sucre reaches another country. There, he shares a meal with an old man who, after hearing Sucre's story, lends him a car so he can get to Maricruz. Meanwhile, Sarah contacts the hospital, where Michael had left her a secret message. There, Michael, Lincoln, and Kellerman are waiting for her. Sarah soon reunites with them, but tells Michael about the horrible things Kellerman did to her in the past. Tensions rise, but Kellerman redeems himself a bit by revealing that Sarah's key belongs to a secret club in Chicago, offering it as their next lead. Because of this, the group boards a train headed for Chicago. Haunted by her trauma, Sarah considers killing Kellerman during the train ride, but Michael and Lincoln stop her. Meanwhile, we see that Kellerman is now speaking directly with President Caroline, who tells him to bring the brothers to Chicago. Kellerman informs her that they are already on a train to the city. At the same time, acting on a tip, the police block the train's path to catch the fugitives. However, Michael and Lincoln force the conductor to keep the train moving, narrowly escaping capture. Law enforcement then gets reports of 4 people jumping from the moving train. When the police catch them, they realize they're not the real fugitives. The real group, Michael, Lincoln, Sarah, and Kellerman, sneak away, with Kellerman slipping off the train and disappearing into Chicago unnoticed. In the suburbs, Teabag grows more paranoid when an unexpected visitor shows up at Susan Hollander's home. Feeling unsafe, he decides to move Susan and her children to another city against their will. Meanwhile, C-Note and his daughter Dee Dee stop at a cafe. Their peace is disrupted when a mentally unstable robber causes a scene. C-Note calmly tries to defuse the situation, but when it escalates, he subdues the robber and locks him in the bathroom with help from bystanders. He and Dee Dee flee before police arrive, knowing he's a wanted man. Back at Fox River, Alexander pressures the Pope to approve Bellick's request for administrative isolation, but the Pope refuses. Still, desperate for leverage and backed by the company, Alexander offers Bellick his freedom if he does some dirty work. Bellick, seeing no better option, reluctantly agrees. Later, Alexander tracks down Potoshik, who's hiding in an abandoned tower. Terrified of returning to prison, Potoshik climbs to the edge. Following Kim's orders to eliminate escapees, Alexander coldly tells Potoshik he can either end it himself or be captured. After a tense pause, Potoshik chooses to jump, ending his life. Meanwhile, Kellerman finds out that the woman he thought was President Caroline was actually an imposter planted by Kim. That's how the police found their location. Realizing the company betrayed him, Kellerman fully commits to helping the brothers bring it down. The group arrives at the elite Chicago club connected to Sarah's key. Inside, Michael and Sarah find the room where the tape is stored, but security catches them, forcing them to flee empty-handed. Though frustrated, the group becomes even more determined to find another way to expose the truth. They soon discover that Pope is a member of the same secret club. So, they head to Pope's house, where Michael appeals to his sense of justice, pleading that Lincoln is truly innocent, but Pope refuses to help. Michael then offers to turn himself in if Pope retrieves the tape. Pope agrees, goes to the club, and gets the tape. However, Kim ambushes him and tries to seize it. Michael, Lincoln, and Sarah intervene just in time to save Pope. Meanwhile, Sarah refuses to open the door for Kellerman, leaving him behind. Later, Pope confirms to Michael that the tape is real and could help free Lincoln. He assures them that now they don't need to surrender to expose the company. Meanwhile, Teabag forces Susan Hollander and her children into his childhood home, a place filled with memories of his father's abuse. Teabag locks them in the basement while battling his own trauma. Struggling with guilt, he eventually decides to let them go. Shattered by the experience, Teabag calls the police, telling them a woman and her kids are trapped in an abandoned house. When officers arrive, Teabag has already vanished. Despite everything, it's clear he still has feelings for Susan. Cine takes his daughter Dee Dee to a hospital as her condition worsens, but being a fugitive, he can't secure proper treatment. He then visits a homeless shelter and attempts to bribe a doctor to treat Dee Dee. Initially, he refuses to allow the use of anesthetics due to the risks, but her pain compels him to relent. Realizing he can't continue fleeing with her, he strikes a deal with Alexander. Cine will deliver Michael in exchange for his daughter's freedom and medical care elsewhere. Sucre reunites with Maricruz, and despite being pursued by security personnel, they return to their native village and begin a new life, anticipating the arrival of their child. Meanwhile, Michael, Lincoln, and Sarah listen to the recording and realize it could prove Lincoln's innocence. Lincoln contacts a lawyer connected to Aldo's group and arranges a meeting. To ensure safety, Lincoln checks that the man isn't being followed before leading him to Michael. However, he discovers the person is an imposter planted by Kim, equipped with hidden microphones. Sarah becomes suspicious of the lawyer's identity when approached by Bruce, who convinces her he's no longer working for the company and helps her locate the real lawyer. Before Sarah and Bennett can warn Michael, he uncovers the deception himself and escapes with Lincoln just before the trap is sprung. The lawyer listens to the recording, but delivers disappointing news. While the recording is valid, its date isn't original, so it can't prove it was made after Stedman's death. However, he adds that although it won't exonerate Lincoln, it could implicate President Caroline Reynolds. The brothers decide to use it as leverage to blackmail Reynolds into granting them a presidential pardon. Meanwhile, Teabag creates a new identity by killing a doctor and boards a flight to Mexico with a bag full of cash. Sucre and Maricruz visit his aunt, but their happiness is short-lived as Bellick pressures Sans into revealing Sucre's location. Elsewhere, Kellerman, remorseful for his past actions for the president and the company, bids an emotional farewell to his sister as he plans to assassinate President Reynolds to dismantle the company. Meanwhile, Cine is in prison, and Alexander continuously pressures him to find Michael. Desperate for help, Cine sends multiple messages to Michael's website but receives no response. Seeing this, Alexander closes in and orders Cine to kill himself if he wants a better life for his daughter and wife. The following morning, when Cine attempts to hang himself in despair, guards rescue him. His situation takes a surprising turn when he's interviewed by Agent Wheeler, who works for Internal Affairs and is investigating Alexander's illegal activities. On the other hand, Michael contacts President Reynolds with a message about the recording. Before Reynolds can act, Michael is kidnapped by Kim and his agents, who begin interrogating him. At the same time, Kellerman quietly leaves the scene and positions himself to kill the president with his sniper rifle. As Kim abuses Michael, the president arrives and sends Kim outside. Michael tells the president he has incriminating evidence against her and will leak it to the media unless she grants them a presidential pardon within an hour. He calls his brother Lincoln and plays the recording over the phone, exposing an incestuous relationship between Reynolds and Stedman. Left with no choice, Reynolds decides to pardon Michael and Lincoln to silence the scandal. Meanwhile, Teabag, now in Mexico, gets into a fight over a bag full of money. He even clashes with a guard while retrieving his own bag from the airport. Sucre watches the news and sees Teabag's location at the airport, prompting him to retrieve the stolen money. When Sucre finally goes to retrieve the bag, Bellick captures him and reveals he knows where the money really is, and has his own plans for it. Meanwhile, Alexander tracks Sarah to her motel. He questions her about Michael's whereabouts, but she refuses to give up any information. Instead of arresting her immediately, he lets her go, setting a trap. Unaware, Sarah is secretly being followed by Agent Lang on Alexander's orders to track her movements. At the same time, as President Reynolds prepares for a press conference, Kim approaches and warns her not to make any reckless decisions in public. When she ignores him, Kim threatens to expose more of her hidden scandals. Pressured, Reynolds steps up to the podium and suddenly announces her retirement, claiming she's battling malignant cancer and can no longer serve the country. Her announcement destroys Michael's blackmail plan. With no leverage left, Michael and Lincoln have no choice but to flee for good. They board a ship heading to Panama, planning to regroup and wait for Sarah. But Sarah, still being tailed by Agent Lang, lies to Michael, saying she's already aboard so he can leave without worrying. She's soon captured by the FBI. Meanwhile, Internal Affairs Agent Richard Sullins offers C-Note a deal: testify against Alexander in exchange for witness protection for him and his family. Although hesitant, C-Note agrees out of fear Alexander will harm his loved ones. Sullins promises they'll be safe no matter what. Elsewhere, Kim, under intense pressure, seeks advice from a senior company member. The elder approves Alexander's disappearance after his mission, but also suggests killing everyone involved one by one. Teabag, now in Panama, spirals further out of control. After killing a prostitute who mocks Hollander, he narrowly escapes Sucre and Bellic's attempts to catch him. Sucre tries to shake Bellic, but Bellic reveals Maricruz is being held hostage and won't be released until he gets his cut of the money. Michael and Lincoln also arrive in Panama and reclaim the yacht Michael had bought before he was imprisoned. They prepare to sail away and leave their old lives behind. But just before departure, Michael receives a message on his website from Sucre, revealing Teabag's location. However, the account is now controlled by Alexander, who posts the information to lure Michael into a trap. Still, loyal to his friends, Michael leaves Lincoln and heads to the motel where Teabag is hiding. There, he reunites with Sucre and Bellic, and the three team up once again to pursue their goals. They start tracking Teabag, who's guarded by 2 private bodyguards. Together, they devise a plan to take the bodyguards out. After following Teabag to another site, they stumble upon a horrific scene. Teabag has left a corpse behind, trying to frame the trio for murder. The police quickly arrive. Teabag tries to flee with the money, and in the chaos, Bellic gets arrested while Sucre and Michael escape. Now Michael and Sucre have Teabag in custody. Meanwhile, Alexander, still tracking Michael, is confronted by Lincoln, who wants revenge for their father's death. Their fight delays Alexander long enough for Michael and Sucre to move forward with their plan. Elsewhere, Kellerman, overwhelmed by guilt and failure, attempts suicide. He dresses in his uniform, decorated with all his medals, but when he tries to fire, the gun jams. At that moment, his sister shows up and talks him down, giving him hope to start over. As Teabag is being transported for deportation, he manages to escape en route to the embassy, leaving chaos behind. During the pursuit, Sucre gets injured and their car is destroyed. Michael keeps going, chasing Teabag down. He finally traps Teabag inside a house, stabbing his hand to the floor to prevent his escape, and calls the police. After securing Teabag for the authorities, Michael and Sucre grab the bag of cash and manage to get away, while Teabag is locked back in prison. Back in court, Sarah faces conviction and is about to be sentenced to 12 years for helping Michael escape. But just in time, Kellerman shows up as a surprise witness and redeems himself. He testifies on Sarah's behalf, clearing her name. He reveals that he had been carrying out terrible crimes under President Caroline's orders, and that he forced Sarah to help Michael escape, even planning to kill her at the time. This proves Sarah's innocence, and she is set free. In a final act of redemption, Kellerman also exposes his true motives and presents evidence proving Lincoln's and Sarah's innocence. Though Sarah's charges are dropped, Kellerman is arrested shortly afterward. Meanwhile, Michael returns to the yacht with the money but finds Lincoln missing. He gets a call from Alexander, who tells him Lincoln is captured. Lincoln, though armed, failed to pull the trigger. Alexander demands that Michael hand over the boat and the money in exchange for Lincoln's life. Michael agrees to the trade but secretly works out a plan. He reaches out to a local drug cartel to set a trap for Alexander. At the same time, Alexander tips off the police about a supposed murder, setting off a chain of chaos. He also informs Kim and lures him into a trap, planning to kill Kim and frame the brothers for the crime, clearing all threats against him and securing his own freedom. When Kim and his men arrive, they quickly realize what Alexander is planning after seeing the brothers alive. A fierce shootout breaks out between Kim's team and Alexander. In the chaos, Michael and Lincoln manage to escape, while Alexander flees on a boat. When he docks at the next bank, the police conduct a routine check and discover cocaine hidden on board, leading to Alexander's arrest. Elsewhere, Teabag's ties to the company come to light, but his plots ultimately end with his capture and imprisonment. The brothers reunite and board a yacht Michael had purchased earlier. There, they are surprised to be joined by Sarah, who brings good news. Lincoln has been exonerated thanks to Kellerman's testimony. But their relief is short-lived. Kim suddenly appears, pointing a gun at Lincoln, ready to kill him. Even though Lincoln hands over the bag of money, Kim doesn't care. He wants to eliminate anyone who could threaten the company. Just as Kim is about to pull the trigger, Sarah shoots him. Before they can react, the authorities arrive. With no way to escape, they are forced to surrender. In a shocking twist, Michael decides to sacrifice himself for Sarah. He fakes her kidnapping to make it look like she escaped, leading to his own arrest. Even though Sarah insists that she was the one who shot Kim, not Michael, he is taken into custody. Days later, as the brothers and Sarah go their separate ways, Sarah vanishes before Lincoln can find her. Meanwhile, in another storyline, Bellick forces Sucre to help him escape captivity, but their plan falls apart as chaos erupts. Back to Kellerman, who is being transported in a prison van. Masked gunmen ambush it and kill him. Kellerman had expected it, knowing he had exposed too many secrets about the system. The season ends on a grim note as Michael and Alexander both find themselves locked up in Sona, a brutal Panamanian prison. In the final moments, the prison's general chillingly reveals that this was the company's plan all along. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.